I love a game that has satisfying combat, an awesome art style, and an interesting story. And for some reason, if you throw in cowboys in a Wild West setting, I'll be hooked. I wouldn't have thought to combine all these aspects with vampire hunting and steampunk, but man, does it work. Evil West was released in 2022 on PC, PS4 and 5, and Xbox One and Series X and S. Developed by Flying Wild Hog and published by Focus Entertainment, it earned a 73 on PS5 and PC, and a 75 on Xbox Series X. It was praised for being incredibly fun, with interesting boss fights and spot-on controls. On the other hand, people didn't like the fact that once you defeated a boss, they'd become standard mob enemies later, and the visuals and colour grading weren't great for a modern game. We play as Jesse Rentier, a member of the Rentier Institute created by his father William, which hunts down and destroys the sanguisuge or vampire threat. Jesse is working with a retired agent called Edgar to find more information about the sanguisuge leadership, and they end up grilling a vampire called Chester.
That big shiny ball out there is no good for your sensitive skin.
He tells him there's an extremist within the organization called Dabano, who wants to force evolution and wipe out the human race before their technology becomes too advanced to defend against. This goes against the sanguisuge leadership, and they condemn Dabano to true death.
The humans have harnessed the power of steam and lightning, and they grow mighty. If our hubris allows us to grow fat and lazy in the shadows, they will soon have the power to hunt us down like dogs.
And so, you propose war.
War suggests there is a chance we might lose. I propose we strike. With my new asset, we can control the change. Reclaim the sanguisuge's rightful place at the top of the food chain.
Jesse and Edgar find him and take his head back to the Institute for further research. Back at the Institute, there's a presentation of a gauntlet that can destroy glamours, or magical invisible walls that vampires use to protect their lairs. An Assistant Secretary of War for the government, Harrow, is there to witness the new invention and report back to the president. Dabano has a daughter called Felicity, and she refuses her father to be taken. So she launches an attack on the Institute, decimating the building and wiping out most of the staff and agents. Then recovering her father's head.
Don't be cross with me, Father. I couldn't leave you at the mercy of these savages. Could you not do that, you fleshy toad? You nearly hit him. The mighty Rentier Institute, choking on ash and blood. I had hoped you'd make it more difficult.
William Rentier is critically injured during this attack, leading Jesse, Edgar, Harrow and William to escape to the nearby town of Calico, where a small Rentier headquarters is located. The first thing that caught my attention was the game design. The art style heavily uses certain colours to set the mood of levels, such as deep oranges of the sunset. or the dark blues and greys of ruins. The characters and story premise is intriguing, and I found myself wanting to keep playing to see where things went and what new level designs awaited me. The combat is very satisfying, taking influence from God of War and Devil May Cry games. We have a melee attack with the gauntlet, which is accompanied by different guns with unique abilities. As we go through the game, we get more weapons, each with their own upgrades and powerful attacks. There's also a skill tree to follow, and upgrades are paid for by money we find in levels. There are a few abilities that can be used alongside the gauntlet and guns, which can really mix up how you play. Loot is hidden away in different chests, in swag bags,
More money.
or hanging on the belt of an unfortunate soul. Finding these really encourages exploration, and is so satisfying when you decide to be nosy and wander down a different path. Sadly, there's not a lot of gear to pick up, and there are more skins than gear. I only found one extra set, and it didn't make any difference to the gameplay. The enemies range from vampires to grotesque mutated creatures, which we come across in little arenas within the levels. If you see an open area which you have to jump into, you're most likely going to be getting into a fight.
I'm gonna hang your head on a wall!
There are also boss fights where you have to pay attention to the telegraphing or strange behaviours they have in order to beat them. Each level is its own enclosed entity, but you can always go back and revisit them to get all the loot or just replay. This helps keep the story moving forward, as once you finish a level, there's nothing outside of it to distract from the main storyline. I found myself finishing a level and wanting to progress the story right away, saving replaying levels to the end when I had more weapons and was a little stronger. The story doesn't throw loads of information at you, but it also has a lot of stuff to introduce in the first part of the game. Thankfully, each character is distinctive enough that I didn't get too confused who was who, or what people were talking about.
I am a field agent, not a paper pusher!
You're a rentier!
There are parts of the story which I won't spoil, that evoke a feeling of urgency, like you need to move forwards before time runs out, or you just want to know what happens next. I like this, as you kind of steamroll through the story, but combat was the only thing holding you back from completely spoiling the suspense.
I don't believe my tailor would like that.
Talking of combat, you can choose difficulty levels, and of course, I chose Not a Real Gamer mode. But even then I had to remember to dodge in order to survive, and I'm terrible at remembering to dodge. Don't get me started about parrying. Exploration didn't slow things down either, as you don't have to go too far out of the way to be a loot goblin. Usually it was a little path off to the side or something hidden behind a breakable that was close by.
I'll take that.
I would say this game requires a lot of effort, purely because the combat can be super punishing if you don't pay attention or look away for just a second. During the levels, fighting mobs isn't so bad, but the boss fights and mini arenas can take some time to complete, and you're encouraged to use all your weapons and abilities rather than just stick to one. The story isn't too complex that you have to keep notes of all the characters, and the cutscenes are long enough that you can get all the information without being overloaded with cinematics.
Sanguis Eternus.
The skill trees and abilities are also small enough that you don't spend ages trying to pick something, and you can focus on certain traits that suit your playstyle. Ha! Okay, this isn't relaxing at all. I found myself constantly expecting something to jump out and attack me, but not in a horror game type of way. I was just very aware that an enemy could appear out of nowhere at any time, and I had to be ready to hit it in the face with a giant metal glove. There are parts in the levels that require puzzle solving, but it's always very simple and sometimes obvious. The fact that you can explore around the level does calm things down a little, but because each stage is very confined, it doesn't take long to check every nook and cranny before moving forwards. I wouldn't say this is Souls-like levels of gameplay, but on harder difficulties, I can imagine it being super painful. The story points that push the game forwards don't put too much pressure on you, so you don't feel like you have to rush beating every mob and boss. You can focus on the current situation and just savor the madness. I really loved this game. It was hard enough that I felt satisfaction from the combat, and there was enough exploration to keep my nosiness in check. The art style was so well done, with each environment having character and atmosphere. The characters themselves weren't too over the top, and they had great designs, with Jesse wearing the look of a seasoned vampire killer on his face, the look of many battles in his eyes. The world was one I loved spending time in, and after completing it, I still get a hankering to replay it, just to experience it all one more time. This was fun. Let's do it again sometime. And if you like what you saw, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like down below.